Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Sarah Calgill, Jeff Charles, and Dave Patterson. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. It's now been more than a year since Russia invaded Ukraine, and Joe Biden decided it was time to make a surprise visit to President Zelensky and the folks in Kyiv. Of course, the stopover after his visit to Poland comes amid discontent in Washington from both Democrats and Republicans, who think spending another $500 million across the seas might be a bit unwise. Dave Patterson, you've been following the war in Eastern Europe for Liberty Nation. You know, Biden paid a lot of political capital for this visit. Do you think it was worth it?
Well, I think you have to think about Joe Biden in terms of, it may seem somewhat offbeat, but you know, they used to say about Yasser Arafat that he never lost an opportunity to lose an opportunity. And I think that that's what has happened with his speech in Poland. It was a motivational speech, and that was good. But it was a motivational speech right after, or coincidentally with, Russian President Putin's withdrawing from the New START agreement, which had serious ramifications and will in the future, because now we do not have the opportunity to do the inspections. At the same time, as you mentioned, he announced that $500 million more in weapons aid will go to the Ukraine. Listen, you know, Americans are always for the little guy and against the bully, but there has to be some end state. There has to be for us, what does winning look like, and when will that happen? It just can't be, as Congressman McCarthy said, it can't be an open checkbook.
Yeah, you know, I think the money's starting to really grind on people, Jeff, especially now with what's going on in East Palestine, Ohio. And Americans are starting to get a little miffed about all this spending over in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, there's the spending issue, Lisa, but it's also the fact that our spending is kind of helping to prolong this war. I mean, this past Sunday, they had the biggest anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. in a long time. I mean, and these were liberty-minded folks, libertarians. These were even folks on the left, too, people who are more Marxist, but they did agree on one thing. Continuing this war is not helping anybody, and it's not incentivizing either side to come to some sort of agreement. So there's that issue. And then, there is the money. I mean, we are still dealing with inflation. We're dealing with high grocery prices. I mean, this is not the time to be sending billions and billions and billions of dollars. I saw a meme on Twitter. It was satirical, but it was saying Ohio now identifies as part of Ukraine, hoping to get some money from the government. I've made a joke in the past, too. I made a joke saying that Black people are traveling to Ukraine because that's the way they can finally get reparations from the government. It's absolutely ridiculous. We shouldn't be able to make these jokes, but I think a lot of people see the absurdity in continuing this war that we have really not much to do with, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight.
Yeah, you know, you brought up a couple interesting points. Number one, the crazy politics of it all in the politics make strange bedfellows category. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to shamelessly promote Liberty Nation because we are the ones that put that meme on. So check out our conservative memes. But anyway, speaking about money, we have to go to Andrew, our economics correspondent up there from his perch in Toronto. How much have you guys coughed up, by the way? Let me ask.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. But I think, yes, the taxpayer dollar is also important. But look at the private sector money that's also going to Ukraine. I remember when the war broke out on this program, we discussed how one of the successes that Zelensky is going to enjoy was that it's going to be a capital haven after the war. So one of the things that the government did was that established a $750 billion fund to track all this capital investment for private sectors. And what has happened since then? You had Nestle announce a $43 million new production facility. The private investment arm of the World Bank launched a $2 billion package to support the private sector in Ukraine. You had a green investment fund announce an initial $500 million as part of a large larger $100 billion fund. So all this money, public money and private sector money, is just going into Kiev. And once this war is over, if you want to be woke, if you want to get a high ESG score, you're going to say, yeah, I'm investing in Ukraine. I'm hiring workers. I'm making facilities. I'm setting headquarters there. So overall, Ukraine's going to financially benefit heavily once this war is over. But the main thing is that will the corruption be the worst of them and will actually deter longer term investment?
That's a good point. But Sarah, I can't remember a time, I really can't, when the optics were so bad for a president. I mean, Trump goes out to East Palestine and Tulsi Gabbard is there. And, Joe Biden is tripping up the steps of Air Force One trying to get to Poland. It's just really a bad political optic.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's a short hop in Marine One to go from the White House to East Palestine. It's less than 500 miles, but he'll go 5,000 miles for he just ignores everything under his own nose. And I'm not sure why this administration is like this. They just keep kicking the can down the alleyway and hope for the best outcome. They hope the media is going to cover for them. They're depending on some kind of global love instead of people in their own country. You don't want to see more billions of dollars going to a war overseas. And when you've got, several issues here that are ridiculous, obviously inflation. How about the homeless problem? How about East Palestine, the cleanup? That's not for just the railroad to do. They have people that need to come in and they haven't. They've not been on site. So I don't understand how, they just, oh, that's not our problem. Well, why not? It's here. It's within our borders. It is our problem. It is this government's problem. And they just keep running away from everything that they're faced with.
Well, Jeff, I see you nodding your head, and I totally agree with Sarah. And I thought it was interesting the next day, he tried to make a few phone calls to East Palestine. But Sarah, you made the point in your article, and it was a good one. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from the White House to East Palestine in Marine One. I mean,
it's half a day. It's a half a day total. Half a day total. Get on Marine One, you land. You walk around for 20 minutes, you get back on, you go. And that didn't happen.
And it's a political no-brainer, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I wrote in my article that Trump was going out there, mm-hmm. and that Biden might want to harken back to the days of Jimmy Carter, who at the time of this recording is languishing in hospice, and we pray for him.
We do.
But let me just say that he made a terrible mistake when he was running for re-election. He went on an extended overseas tour. Pat Caddell was standing in Washington, screaming on the phone, tell the president to get back home, tell him to get back home. And Jimmy Carter got slaughtered by Ronald Reagan. And that makes me wonder, Jeff, do you think Biden's deciding to hold off on announcing for president has anything to do with the optics of what's going on?
And that's a good point, Lisa. That might be why, because Biden has been a politician since the Stone Age. He knows better than this. Fred
and Barney voted for him.
Yeah, why would he think it's a good idea to go overseas when there's an issue right at home, right in his backyard? It boggles my mind, and that just even further solidifies my prediction that he is not running for a second term, because nobody who is running for a second term would make such a rookie mistake.
It's not a rookie mistake for a globalist.
Exactly. I was going to make that same point, Dave. I'm glad you picked up on that, because that is not a rookie mistake. If that is that's your end game.
Or perhaps you realize the air is so toxic that at his age, it would be just terrible for him to step off Marine One and head into East Palestine.
Well, he couldn't walk up the stairs in Poland. Come on.
Yeah, he fell up the stairs.
He fell up the stairs.
Well, I think this whole thing with Ukraine is getting on Americans' last nerve with this toxic spill. Between the money and the emphasis, I think Americans are good people. They're very sorry for what's going on in Ukraine, but they kind of feel like we're spending money we don't have, right, Andrew?
Exactly. You have a $32 trillion national debt, $1.5 trillion federal deficit, $200 trillion unfunded liabilities and expenditures. Where's all this money going from? Well, where's the money going to come from? Well, of course, taxation, printing, and borrowing. You're borrowing money from China and Japan to give it to Ukraine. It's amazing.
Well, no one really wants to fund a war overseas, but here we are, picking a team, sending resources. We'll stay on top of this and keep you posted. Thanks so much, panel. That's it for our C5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio, and our executive producer, Sarah Calgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth matters.